Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creating a New World, uh, the show about the 12 Visions world, a world of wealth, health, peace, love, and freedom that you can help create. My name is Bill Hunziker, and I'm your host, and I'd like to welcome my co-host, Harry Dolgen. Welcome to the show, Harry.
Hey, Bill, I'm very happy to be on. Congratulations on your 26th episode. That's mighty awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry.
You're
Um,
welcome.
okay, we'll start off talking about the 12 Visions world. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and read the 12 Visions. If you have yours available, Harry, you can go ahead and do that. Otherwise,
Uh,
I'll grab something and read it myself.
yeah,
Not a
grab
problem.
something. I don't have
Okay.
anything on
Not a
me.
problem. Okay, here's Mark Hamilton's Visions book, and I'll just read from the table of contents. Vision 1, become the person you were meant to be. Vision 2, live the life you were meant to live.
Hmm.
Vision 3, feel extraordinary. Vision 4, stop aging. Vision 5, get the job of your dreams. Vision 6, start the company you always wanted. Vision 7, embrace the lover of your fantasies. Vision 8, diet down to the body you always envied. Vision 9, become a genius. Vision 10, surround yourself with geniuses. Vision 11, ride a prosperity wave that will make you a millionaire. Vision 12, enjoy perfect physical and mental health. Those are the 12 visions that describe the 12 Visions world. Um, Today, we're going to talk about retirement, and specifically Social Security retirement and also Social Security disability. Um, Basically, Social Security was originally um, described as a basically a retirement fund for every individual in the country. Um, and But it was never set up to where um, the money that you put in from your paycheck would be placed specifically in an account for you to draw from when you retired. It was never set up that way. That's the way. That way, if it was set up that way, then everyone would be guaranteed retirement. But it was not set up that way. Um, Basically, initially, a lot of the funds were put away, and the uh, Bob, you may also want to mute yourself in addition to turning off your camera, which is fine, but you may want to. Thank you. Uh, and The way it was set up was initially they put all the money in a big fund, and then when people started retiring, they took money out of that fund. But eventually, and also later, much later in the 80s and 90s, they basically borrowed from that fund to finance other government programs. And basically nowadays, um, the money is being paid to retirees directly from people who are working. And that's why you keep hearing about how unsustainable um, Social Security is, because basically, as people are living longer, the population of people who are retired is growing, but the population of people who are working and the amount of money they're contributing is decreasing, because not only are we getting more and more retired people, but we're also getting fewer and fewer workers, and fewer workers that have high-paying jobs where they can contribute the maximum amount of money. I remember back in the 80s, when I first started working, I dreamed of the day when I would reach the point that I would max out on Social Security or FICA withdrawals from my pay. But every time I got a raise or got a better paying job, they had already increased the maximum. I don't know what it is now, but it's still higher than my current annual salary. So I pay Social Security taxes all year round, and have never reached the point where I no longer, where I don't pay Social Security taxes for the remainder of the year. As far as I know, it could actually be, there could be no cap, and everybody has to pay in, no matter how much money they make. There's also Social Security disability, which is separate from, and that comes out of general government funds, from what I understand. And basically, if you find yourself with a physical condition or even a mental illness that impairs you to the point where you can't work, then you can basically retire young and receive payments from the government for the rest of your life, as long as you continue to have that physical disability or mental illness that prevents you from working at a job. So this is what we have now, and unfortunately, that costs a lot of money, because a lot of people have claimed disability, and that's a lot of money that's being paid out. Not that I think those people, don't deserve help, because they're unable to work, but I think that there are other ways and better ways to do it. Now, looking at the 12 Visions world, the world we want to create, several things will be very different. First of all, there won't be any forced withdrawal of money from your income to pay for a retirement that may or may not exist. There won't be that. You'll have the money, and you'll be able to choose for yourself what kind of, whether or not you want to put that money toward your retirement or something else. And everyone will have a choice about how they want to plan for their retirement, and not have it forced upon them the way it is done now. But also, people in the 12 Visions world will be discovering their Friday night essence, and will be basically doing something they love, and they may not want to retire, but may want to continue doing what they love, and continue, and because prices will fall so far, no matter what income you get from doing what you love, it'll be enough to at least sustain your life, if not live a very wealthy and comfortable life by the standards we say today, but at a much, much lower cost. Also, there will be advances in healthcare that will allow people to live longer, more healthy lives, and they won't feel the need to retire because of because of physical disability, and also everyone will get private insurance in case some injury or illness does make them unable to, make enough income to live on. So you will have private insurance that will pay you, and it'll be voluntary, not forced on you. Everyone will have a choice about whether or not they want to plan for being injured, and a choice about whether or not they want to plan for an eventual retirement. Me personally, I don't intend to retire. I basically intend to move from what I'm doing now, which is a dead-end job that I really don't particularly enjoy, but can do well enough to pay enough to live on, to things I want to do, including this show, and reach the point where I'm getting sufficient income from doing that and other things, so that I don't have to work at a job that I don't particularly enjoy, just to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I said, in the 12 Visions world, people will have basically will be doing what they enjoy to do, and they won't want to basically retire from that. They'll want to keep doing it because they enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Unlike in the world today, where you work a job that you can barely tolerate, or that you like but not necessarily love, and are very limited in what you can do, because in most jobs you are basically told what you can and cannot do. And you're also rewarded directly for your efforts. Your income will be totally controlled by you, and not by someone else who arbitrarily decides how much your efforts are worth. So people who are in control of their income and are enjoying and loving what they do will want to continue to do it. I see no reason that that anyone would want to retire in the 12 Visions world. Why would you want to stop doing something you love doing?
Yeah, great, Bill. You spoke about a lot of different areas.
Mm-hmm.
The reality today, at least for me, the baby boomers who were born in the 50s, like around 55 to 60, they planned their retirement when they worked, but the reality is they can't really retire because they can't pay their bills. So it's a sad, sad situation. I know the 12 Visions world, they speak about the great technological revolution that's going to increase buying power, and seniors are going to become wealthy. Can you kind of explain that a little bit to me and people in the audience?
Sure.
The great technological revolution that Mark Hamilton speaks about?
Basically, if we look at an example that Mark Hamilton provides us, which is the computer and information technology industry, if we go back to the 1970s, basically a computer was something that, at the very least, was the size of a refrigerator or a mini fridge, and at the most filled a whole room and cost tens to hundreds of thousands, upward to millions of dollars. Today, we have computers that you can hold in your hand.
Right. Yeah.
Or even wear on your wrist. And those computers have greater capacity and power than those computers from the 1970s. And they cost in most cases less than $1,000 and as little as $200 or $300 or even less. And if you have a plan with your telephone company, your telephone provider, you can even get it without paying extra for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, basically we have, and that's why almost everybody owns a cell phone. Not everybody owns a computer, but everybody owns a cell phone. A lot of people own an iPad or some other similar device. A lot of people have laptop computers that are small and light and portable and can be taken anywhere, but not as conveniently as your cell phone.
Right.
I mean, basically, the cell phone is a so-called smartphone is the ultimate progression of the computer, and now with intelligent watches, we've reached an even smaller computer that has similar capabilities to your smartphone. So now we have computers that are much more efficient, have much more capabilities than for hundreds of dollars and are much better than computers from the 70s and 80s that cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars. And
right.
Consider that kind of innovation in other industries.
Yeah.
Consider if you could, if your car got more and more sophisticated and safer, protected you better, but cost less and less money. And consider if your house got more and more efficient. In fact, got self-sufficient, where you didn't have to buy electricity from the government to light your house and cook your food and keep warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And we're seeing signs of that now, but very small signs. And where you know, basically your house could be custom built in a factory and delivered to site and installed, ready to move in within days, instead of taking weeks and even months to build by hand, which is the way most houses are still built today.
Right.
And have very, very efficient lighting and heating and cooling, and have things such as the new Tesla house battery, basically a battery that stores enough energy to run your house for a long period of time. And we can reach the point where this becomes more and more affordable as people are able to basically, you know, are free to experiment and invent new and better ways of doing all these things, to the point where, you know, and are free, of course, to fail, you know.
Right.
I mean, we're not. The biggest problem that I personally have with our government is, you know, they keep saying, oh, they keep trying to do more and more to prop people up, to the point where people become dependent on that rather than relying on themselves to, you know, to take care of themselves. There's always this idea, oh, the government will take care of me. You know, I don't have to try extra hard. I don't have to come up with new things and new ideas. I can get a run-of-the-mill job, pay my Social Security taxes, and retire at 65 or 67 or 70 or whatever the retirement age is going to be by the time you get there, and the government will take care of me. But unfortunately, we've seen that the government really doesn't take care of you.
Right. In that note, I just want to interject.
Sure.
I have a concern which I want to make you aware of. There's some elements of the population, the seniors. They're very, very concerned about the new technology. I know a lot of seniors in the adult communities who do not want to use a computer or cell phone. They're afraid. So I think we need to educate more of these seniors and bring them up to, the new technology and explain to them what's going on. I think we have to educate them and teach them how to use these things because a lot of them, like you said, they're relying on the government to do things for them and help them, and they don't want to become self-leaders. They don't want to do things for themselves, probably because they're programmed for so many years. So
It's
I'm
what they know.
concerned, yeah, for that segment of the population that they don't even know how to use a cell phone or an iPad,
Hmm.
Bill. So I think, in that we really need to educate them. We need to educate that segment of the population because they're falling by the wayside, from my experience.
Yes, of course, they have a choice of whether or not they want to use this technology, uh,
Right.
but they should be able to make an informed choice. They
Right.
should have an understanding of what it is,
Right.
and not have a fear of an unknown, but know what it is, and then be able to make a decision based on that knowledge. I mean,
Right.
that's what everyone needs in every situation is the knowledge. You
Yeah.
know, we don't have to make people use cell phones or computers or any of these things, but what we want to do is give them the knowledge so they can make their own decision based on an understanding, not based on not knowing and being afraid of something because you don't know about it. And that's part of what we want to do in the 12 as we create the 12 Visions world is give everyone the knowledge so they can make informed choices about their lives.
That's a good point. Yeah, because there's so much fear in the outer communities that I do business in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in real estate,
Mm-hmm.
and I come across sellers that don't even know how to look up on a cell phone houses on Zillow and Realtor.com, and
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible their lack of knowledge in this day and age. And it's like you don't want to teach an old dog new tricks. They're comfortable in what they do and how they do it,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know how to use a computer. But you're
Mm-hmm.
right. Once you give them a choice and you show them and teach them, what they can do, then it's totally up to them to do it. Oh, hello, Bob.
Hello,
Thanks
Hello.
for
Bob.
joining us. I
I come
hope you're
on
feeling
because I
better.
have a question to ask.
Certainly.
Our leaders squandered Social Security money over the ages now, over the years. Now, my question is, since they're the ones that squandered it and have us in the situation that we're in today, they have a very lucrative retirement fund. Why shouldn't Social Security tap into their retirement fund and share the money equally amongst all the people instead of them just getting the lucrative pensions that they get?
Because
Yeah,
they make the laws. They make the laws, and
Mhm.
they and they use their ego, and it benefits them.
They make the laws only because we put them in the position to
Right.
do that. Why
Right.
can't we put the right people in the position to change those laws so
Right.
that it's a more equitable retirement plan for everyone?
I agree.
I agree also, but of course, in the 12 Visions world, and especially as we transition, um, the plan is to not, basically eliminate those elected positions
Yes,
by replacing the government with a protection-only business.
yes. But in the meantime, the people could
Mhm.
also get together and make the necessary changes to equalize everything.
I agree. I mean, I agree that it is definitely unequal as it stands now. I mean, basically,
Well, how do we do that? But how do we bring the people? I mean, we need a revolution. You don't want a
part of
revolution.
that's part of what we're doing here. But if we do follow the plan of the 12 Visions Party and elect the 12 Visions president and eventually other members, 12 Visions members of the Congress, the changes that we talk about on this show will happen quickly.
Right.
And we will go from where we are now to, instead of paying senior citizens who have retired a pittance, I mean,
And they can't retire.
well below
Yeah.
poverty wages,
Yeah.
we will basically determine all the money that they've paid into the system and give it back to them with interest, so that they will suddenly have a large sum of money, that they can invest however they want, in an annuity, or they can use it to start a business of their own doing something they love. That is the whole point of giving people choices. The system we have in place now does not give you a choice. It traps you in basically a poverty situation.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a great question, Bob. Yeah.
Excellent question.
But what I'm thinking is we really have to get people out there. We got to make them aware of the 12 Visions Party, and because there's so many people that are disillusioned with the politics that are going on right nowadays, but they don't want to do anything about it. That's the thing, because they probably figure, well, there's nothing they can do. This is the way it is. The cards are stacked against them. So, you'll throw, pardon my expression, shit on the wall and see where it lands. And then they'll follow it. I mean, so I guess it's incumbent on each one of us to try to get the word out about the 12 Visions Party and what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my opinion on this whole thing. Or else nothing's going to happen.
I mean, we can see part of the Social Security retirement trap right now, because we have basically they've used dishonest information to basically say you don't need an increase in your below poverty level income this year. So next year, people who are receiving Social Security retirement benefits are not going to see an increase in their money, even though everything is still increasing. Food costs, housing costs, all are still increasing.
Yeah, yeah. And what frightens me, Bill, is the $1 trillion debt that we have. We're going to be in our currency. I mean, this is off topic, but the Fed keeps printing up new bills, new money, and inflation. I mean, it's incredible. What are we going to do? How's the 12 Visions Party going to take us out of this terrible depression that might be coming upon us?
Part of the plan, which honestly I don't agree with 100%, is to take all the government assets, including buildings and land and other things, vehicles, everything that are initially not being used for protection, and sell them off, and then use the proceeds, of course, first to repay all senior citizens what they've contributed to the Social Security system,
right,
and then pay off the debt. Now, I personally, but I'm not going to be the person making decisions, and I don't expect my personal opinions to be followed, but I personally feel that the national debt is basically dishonestly created, and therefore should not be paid back, but should be repudiated, because we're basically saying they set up a system where a private banking institution, lends money to the government, whereas the government had the power basically to run the currency system and create the money themselves. They didn't have to borrow from a bank.
Right.
They created this. They created this system to make the bankers wealthy. And the bankers came in and created this, and now they're perpetuating it and pretending it's a benefit when it's not a benefit.
Right.
It creates a situation where, our country's going to go bankrupt because of this dishonest setup. That's my personal opinion. I don't consider that to be representative of the Neothink Society or the 12 Visions Party. That's just my personal opinion.
Right, it's going to happen. We need someone to catch us while we're falling.
That's what the 12 Visions Party is going to do by
Yeah.
changing everything to the point where instead of living in an economy where money becomes worth less and less because they keep making more, printing more of money that has
Yeah.
nothing backing it up.
There
I
isn't.
mean, I see a transition back to a precious metal based money system. That's what I would prefer. Something that has intrinsic value of its own that you can have in your hand, rather than a piece of paper that represents something that is basically an illusion.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's, if people out there want to know more about what they can do to protect their earnings and their assets, Ron Paul puts out something on the internet. Just go to ronpaul.com or Google Ron Paul and read up about it, because I don't think people's assets are going to be protected. If the U.S. currency continues where it is, everything is going to be taken. All your savings, anything
Well,
that you have.
we've seen what happens in other places in the world where inflation gets out of control and the government, basically the government steps in and gives banks permission to freeze your money,
Yeah.
so they don't have to give you your money.
Right.
And that's, I'm really getting to the point where I want to start, rather than creating a savings account with hundreds or thousands of dollars in it, buying silver rounds or silver bars or
gold and silver.
gold. I mean, I'm not at a level right now where I can really significantly invest in gold, but I could invest in silver, buy silver rounds at, $25 or $30 a piece, or buy American bullion, U.S. bullion coins at $25 or $30 a piece, an ounce at a time, and I can start saving value that way rather than putting money in a bank that I may not see.
And even if it's FDIC insured, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if the government passes laws that says, the bank can hold on to your money and it and is allowed not to pay you back the money that you gave to them.
Right.
I mean, the other side of this, unfortunately, is that we have had, unfortunately, since the 80s, we've had coercive and dishonest loaning practices by the banks and backed up by the government, especially in housing.
I agree.
Where does a person go about buying these gold and silver coins that you're talking about?
There are several online services that sell them, but the easiest thing to do is go to your local coin dealer, and they will have these. You can buy silver rounds or gold rounds, gold rounds, or even bars that weigh 5 ounces or more. It's just a matter if you have the money to do that. That's why I suggested silver, because most people aren't in a position to pay $1,000 or $700 or $800 for an ounce of gold.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the price of gold has gone up so high that it's very difficult for people, in the lower middle class to have the ability to invest in those. But people who do have the ability, yes, I think gold is a good investment. But that's my personal opinion. I'm not giving people investing advice here. I'm just saying that the reality is our paper money is based on an illusion. It could collapse any time.
Yeah, and that's what they're saying.
And is slowly falling apart.
Yeah,
every day a dollar bill buys less and less.
I implore everybody to go look up Ron Paul and his program on Google. He has ways of protecting your money.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you
and probably has much better advice than I do about how to go about that.
Yeah, well, he was in Congress for 20 or 30 years, and he retired because he just got fed up with the whole system. Okay, so he has some good insights about this. So again, just go to Ron Paul on Google Ron Paul, and you'll get the information.
Okay, thank you very much. That was an excellent discussion, and you know, as usual, we've gone beyond the original topic, which is excellent because we've shown how the original topic is related to these other areas,
Absolutely.
and that's great. We have run a little bit long, so I'm going to once again make a decision and skip the Where's the Force portion today, and we'll move right on to the next section, which is creating the 12 Visions world through the 12 Visions party. If you have it in front of you, Sage, I'm not going to ask Bob because he's not feeling well. But if you have the Prime Law in front of you, you can read it. Otherwise, I have several copies at hand. But if you have it, feel free to read it.
And by the way, Sage is not here. This is Harry.
I thank you, Harry.
You're welcome. I can read it. I just found it. A wonderful document. I hope we can make it an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The prime law, the fundamental of protection. Preamble. The purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily. The function of government is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose. The prime law guarantees those conditions by forbidding the use of initiatory force, fraud, or coercion by any person or group against any individual, property, or contract. Article 1. No person, group of persons, or government shall initiate force, threat of force, or fraud against any individual, self, property, or contract. Article 2. Force is morally and legally justified only for protection from those who violate Article 1. Article 3, no exception shall exist for Articles 1 and 2. And this, of course, this simple yet profound law would eradicate poverty across America and multiply prosperity for every single American.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Harry. I'm going to go ahead and read the next section in the national platform, and then Harry, I'll ask you to read the section after that. We're reading on page 29 of the national platform, the section entitled Jobs. The job market booms in Hamilton, America. Not only are there lots of available jobs in Hamilton, America, but the quality of jobs keeps going up. Why? The great technological revolution. The quality of jobs climbed from physical labor to mental, creative jobs. How? Consider that unemployment is almost non-existent in the booming business, investment, research, manufacturing center of the world. In fact, there are not enough people to fill all the jobs in such a rapidly booming Hamilton, America. Indeed, this is when the power and beauty of the great technological revolution shines through. As Hamilton, America booms and not enough people can fill the rapidly growing job market, the great technological revolution advances technologies, including computers and robotics, to take over jobs of labor and push the people upward into the superior jobs of the mind. In order to get enough people to fill the explosion of new jobs creates a strong demand for new technologies to fill the lower tier jobs of labor. That those natural economic pressures, like a rising tide, lift ordinary people to better, more enriching jobs of the mind. Back in America, by contrast, more and more citizens not only hang on to their lowly jobs of labor for dear life as the economy crashes, but those who do lose their jobs seek the lowest labor jobs to survive. Okay, Harry, go ahead and read the next section entitled Freedom.
Okay, this section is called Freedom. A fully free country has never existed before in Hamilton, America. America came close with the nearly flawless U.S. Constitution, but the most fundamental law of protection from man, the prime law, was missed, which caused an opening in our original Constitution for return of the rule of man. Eventually, the rule of man resurged and re-strengthened into a ruling class, a big government that today is racing into government interventionism, or in other words, socialism. With no prime law, man broke through the opening in our Constitution, and freedom leaked from our country to the point in America today in which force-backed socialism and therefore poverty are taking over. In the beginning, the nearly flawless U.S. Constitution gave us the best rule of law in the world, and therefore unrivaled prosperity took over. Without the prime law of protection from the rule of man, from a ruling class, our Constitution and our country became vulnerable. As freedom leaked out, so did our prosperity. And now, increasingly under the rule of man, our loss of freedom is hemorrhaging, and so is our loss of prosperity. Freedom is replaced with socialism. Prosperity is replaced with poverty. You want me to continue, Bill?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot said there.
Go to the end of this section.
Okay. Hamilton, America, by contrast, is the first and only full free country in the history of the world. Hamilton, America adds the prime law as an amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which immediately closes the opening and encircles the country with pure protection from man, including rule of man and a ruling class. Hamilton, America quickly fills with pure freedom and unprecedented prosperity. Hamilton, America has no ruling class, no rule of man, and only the rule of flawless law, called the prime law, the fundamental law of protection, through which all law must pass. All agenda law that forces the rule of man on citizens will not pass. While Sister America relinquishes her freedom to rule of man and his big government ruling class, she sinks into a catastrophic era of job losses, home losses, recession, and depression. Hamilton, America, by contrast, soars into the great technological revolution as the geniuses of society are no longer held back or afraid to invest in their ideas. Hamilton, America quickly rises into the greatest prosperity ever seen as prices come down to fractions, witnessed once before in the isolated personal computer industry. All the people in Hamilton, America grow rich as their standards of living, wealth, health, safety, entertainment, and happiness soar. They happily pay for their protection, they happily pay for their government of protection only, their service-based government as opposed to America's force-based government. Indeed, citizens of Hamilton, America, as they watch America and the world around them fall into fear and desperation, gladly pay for a government that guarantees the conditions that allow them to live in such a health, wealth, and peace. Wow, that's something else. Yeah.
Thank you, Harry. Basically, referring back to the job section first, as it says, people will, as technology takes over the lower labor jobs, people will be buoyed or will be lifted up into jobs of the mind, jobs that are basically everyone will either create their own separate business or be in charge of a mini business within a larger company and use their minds to increase their income. Also, there will be people whose Friday night essence, the thing they love to do, is help other people find their Friday night essence. Help people discover what they love to do and then help them find a way to do it and prosper from it. And we already see that with Steve Fagan's Steve Fagan Associates, which are providing what they call coaching services. Basically, they are helping people find their Friday night essence and helping them discover how to find a way to do what they love and prosper from it. That's already happening in a small way. In the 12 Visions world, there'll be many people who will be providing this service because it's what they love to do. Moving on to the next section, this is where true freedom comes from. We do not have freedom if at any time our government can change the rules. And we discussed a few specific ways in which that can happen in the last section, such as suddenly telling the banks that they can hold on to your money. People say, oh, that can't happen here, but look elsewhere in the world. It's happened in many places at many times in the past. And also, they make decisions about and also delegate their authority to people that are not elected, such as the Federal Reserve Bank, the Federal Reserve System, and then they make decisions that make our money worth less and less. By printing, when you print more and more money, every dollar buys less because there's more and more money. It's just, you know, the law of supply and demand. When you have more of something, it buys less. Plus, we have money that's just based on, you know, based on what people believe it is, rather than having intrinsic value. So if you have a dollar bill in your hand, it might be worth $1 today and might be only worth 90 cents tomorrow, and then less the next day.
Right.
Based on what it's worth today.
Right.
And basically, from the time they created the Federal Reserve System until now, the dollar has decreased to where it's worth less than 10 cents of what it was worth then.
Right.
And it's still decreasing.
And that's why we might have a currency crash coming in the future, with the U.S. dollar crashing. Huh?
I mean, the only solution is to get rid of the Federal Reserve and go back to a value-based monetary system. But that will never happen in the world we live in now, because too many people are invested in that idea and too many people are profiting from it.
Yeah, and they don't want to give up their power. Yeah.
Right. Or their profit, but yes, definitely their power, even though it's to the detriment of the majority of people.
Right. I agree.
I mean, and it's that way in every other area that the government becomes involved in. I mean, I have a book that I got a while back, a gentleman named Harry Browne. Last name is spelled Browne. Shares a name with you, Harry.
He must be a smart guy.
Yep, was a libertarian who ran for president in 1996 and 2000. And in 1996, just like everybody else, he published a book that described his policies and ideas for government, and that book was called Why Government Doesn't Work. And basically, without specifically mentioning the idea of, well, he does talk about initiatory force in the book, but he doesn't talk about eliminating it as we want to through the prime law. He just talks about limiting it severely. But he talks about the way government is run today, and how every time the government gets involved, I mean, basically describes it this way. The only way you could get the government to do what you want to do is by becoming a dictator and having total control over everything. Then whatever you wanted to happen would happen. But the government we have today, if you go to your congressman and say, I want to pass a law that that takes care of people who mess up and end up in a lot of debt, which is not something I would advocate, but it's just an example. By the time it got through the government, it could do just the opposite. I mean, let's change that to something we would want, such as even providing more money for families who are poor. By the time it got through, we would have something like the food stamp program, which gives people less and less every year, and is set up in such a way that people can abuse it and misuse it, you know. And the same thing with the welfare program. All you have to do is go and fill out a form, and then you basically have welfare for the rest of your life, unless you do something stupid and let people know that maybe you have other money, you know, or, you know, go on Social Security disability, just fill out some forms, have some doctors say that you're disabled, you know. And I'm not saying everybody, most people that go do these things need it. Now, I'm not saying they don't, but there's a small percentage of people that basically defraud the system. Yep. Because of the way it's set up, because there's no accountability. Once you qualify for either welfare or disability, they do very little to follow up and make sure that you're still disabled, or that you know that your situation hasn't changed. You just collect a check every month.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the way the government works. Whereas before, charity or local welfare, and I encountered local welfare because I went through some hard times when I was younger, and I went to the local welfare office, and I basically had to report to them every week what I was doing. And the person that I had to talk to asked me, well, are you looking for a job? You know, are you trying to get some skills or education so you can get, and constantly following up with me and helping me reach a point where I would no longer need the help. But with national welfare, you just fill out some forms, you qualify, and then they just send you a check every month, and they don't do any of these things, except in very isolated circumstances. But most of the time, they just send you a check every month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, people don't have an incentive to improve their circumstances that way if they're just going to get a check every month.
Right.
And in the book, Harry Brown's book, Why Government Doesn't Work, he cites the example of the Civil Rights Movement, which basically started with people protesting what were known as Jim Crow laws in the South that basically discriminated against black people and basically made them second-class citizens, and so people couldn't get the local governments to change this. So they went to the federal government, and most of the time, we've seen when the federal government gets involved, they go for instead of prohibiting what the bad things people are doing, they make things mandatory. And you can't force people not to be prejudiced. No matter how many laws you pass, no matter what you do, even today there are people that are prejudiced, and we continue to see these kind of actions. For instance, I believe it's in Alabama, they passed a law where you had to have a picture ID to vote. Then they closed all the motor vehicle stations in the predominantly black counties.
Wow.
Therefore making it difficult for black people to get a picture ID. Yeah. So we still have discrimination going on today. Yes. Institutionalized discrimination.
It's amazing that still goes on today. Poverty still goes on today.
Yeah.
And we're supposedly one of the richest countries in the world. Yeah.
But the example that Harry Brown was citing was that the the civil rights laws, federal laws, have reached a point where someone in Florida was able to claim that they were being discriminated against because they had to work with black people. And
That's
it stuck.
absurd. That's absurd.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's absurd.
I mean, to
No.
me personally, people are people. You don't.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
You don't identify people by their appearance. Or judge them by their appearance. You judge them by their actions.
And their character and all that. What's inside.
Well, their actions show their character.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
That's
I
the
agree.
only honest way to do it. Otherwise, you're being prejudiced. You're being
Yeah.
a bigot or a racist or a sexist or whatever. If you presuppose that someone is a certain way just because of what they look like.
Yep. Interesting. Yeah, so you highly recommend the book, Bill, huh?
I guess I do. I think I loaned you a copy a while back, but I don't
Yes.
remember for
I
certain.
did read, and in the beginning when I said Harry Brown, and I said, yeah, he must be smart. In all actuality, I did read some of it.
Mhm.
Okay, well, this was a while back, and it's a great read. It's a great read. You can really learn about
Mhm.
the history of government. Absolutely. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Mr. Brown passed away about 10 years ago. I don't remember exactly when offhand. And unfortunately, his own party turned against him and basically, ostracized him.
And he was a libertarian, right?
Yes, he was a libertarian.
Okay.
hmm Okay, unless anybody else has any more questions or comments, we're going to go ahead and close out this episode. I want to thank you, Harry, for joining us.
Oh, wonderful show, Bill. You're doing a wonderful job. How can people get involved in the show?
I'll get to that in just a moment.
Okay.
I also want to thank Bob McCaffrey for joining us briefly and asking his excellent question. And hope you feel better so
Yes,
you can
Bob, feel
participate more in future episodes. Thank you
Bill.
again.
I'll try to do that.
hmm So now I'm going to move on to the closing, so please don't interrupt me. If you have any questions, please send them to cnwshow@gmail.com. You can see previous episodes at www.tocreateanewworld.blogspot.com, and I'll say that one more time, www.tocreateanewworld.blogspot.com. You can like us on Facebook. Just search for Creating a New World and CNW Show. CNW Show is the page that is set up on Facebook. You can also join our Google Plus community. That's also called CNW Show. You can support the show by telling your family and friends about it. You can also support the show by going to www.patreon.com, Creating a New World, and pledging $1 or more an episode. All opinions expressed on the show are the sole responsibility of the individual participants and do not represent the Neothink Society, the 12 Visions Party, or author Mark Hamilton. Creating a New World is a production of Integrated Values, LLC. I wish everyone wealth, health, peace, love, and freedom.